Dear subscribers, Vandanam. During this COVID-19 pandemic situation, whenever you are going outside, wear the mask without fail. So that is a very important procedure you have to do if you are going outside. You have to wear the mask like this, covering the entire mouth as well as this nose area. This is the correct procedure to cover the face. With that, I am going to start this session. In this session, I am going to talk about one of the area of nanobiotechnology. It is nothing but nanobiometrics. So in this nanobiometrics, we are going to see about nano particles, nanomotors and nanostructures present in the living system. Let us start the session. So when you want to study about nanobiometrics, you must know what is this nanoscale level. That is building at the nanoscale level. So how to build a nanoscale level particles? So what are all the disciplines involved in building the nanoscale components? So this involves a knowledge of many disciplines. They are all interdisciplines. That is, knowledge about the chemistry of the molecule is needed, knowledge about the biology of the nanoscale particle is needed, then the basic principle of physics involved in that particles. Then since it is a nanoscale construction where sometimes electronics knowledge is also needed, and sometimes mathematical knowledge is also required. So with the help of all these disciplines, we can able to build a nanoscale structure. So that is about nanobiometrics. So how to produce a nanoscale particle? What kind of manufacturing method is available for developing or manufacturing a nanoscale product? So here you can see one method is there, that is called bottom-up manufacturing. In nanotechnology, everyone knows that there are two approaches used for synthesis of nanoparticles. One approach is called a top-down approach, the other one is called a bottom-up approach. So here we are going to see about the bottom-up approach, bottom-up manufacturing of nanoscale products. In 1959, Richard Feynman, in an address of the American Physical Society, he only proposed that there was plenty of room at the bottom. He mentioned about bottom, that bottom is nothing but inside the molecules. There are plenty of rooms inside the particles. So he said there was plenty of room at the bottom. It was possible to use very small objects to create large objects. That is, using small, very small components, you join them one after the other, construct or build up a bigger particle. What he mentioned about is that constructing something from smaller to the bigger one. This is called a bottom-up approach. Starting from small component and developing a bigger molecule. It is called a bottom-up approach in nanotechnology. So that is what he mentioned. This was the beginning of the idea for this nanotechnology and self-assembly. So only Richard Feynman started this idea, new idea. So after that only the bottom-up approach of nanotechnology started. So coming to this biological components. What are all the biological components available in the living cells, and how are these small nanoscale biological components are produced, and what is the use of these biological molecules? So the biology, the concept of biology uses a lot of nanoscale molecules. So what are all the nanoscale molecules or nanoparticles available in the living cells, and they are used for the biological purposes. So the biology which uses nanoscale molecules. So the self-assembly takes place every day inside the body. So inside the body, several biochemical pathways or metabolic pathways are going on. So during that, a lot of biomolecules or nanoscale molecules are constructed. It is called self-construction, self-assembly. The molecules, they are going to be self-assembled or self-organized or self-constructed to form structurally defined and stable arrangements inside the cell. What are all these nanoscale molecules? They are self-assembled inside the living cells. Cell membranes, plasma membrane. Where you see that construction of the lipid bilayer of the plasma membrane itself is a self-assembly process. Then synthesis of proteins in the ribosomes of the rough endoplasmic reticulum of the cell. That is also one of the nanoscale construction of proteins. In proteins, especially construction of the enzymes. Enzymes are involved in metabolic pathways. Then the construction or development of very small cell organelles. Cell organelles like lysosomes, peroxisomes, glyoxysomes, all these things. So all these organelles, cell organelles, protein, cell membrane, components of the cell membranes, they are all self-assembled in a living cell. So this is see that the construction of nanoscale molecules that happens naturally inside the living cell. So our biology naturally uses, you see that the concept of nanoscale construction, it is called self-assembly construction that is happening inside the cell. The biological materials used in the cells for the synthesis of nanostructures, nanoscale products, nanostructures they are called. Nanotechnologists, they are using a variety of biological materials to produce new nanostructures. What are all the nanostructures produced by these nanotechnologists? They are carbon-based nanoparticles, carbon-based nanomaterials. For example, carbon nanotubes, nanocarbon tubes, and nanocarbon buckyballs. They are all carbon nanoparticles, buckyballs. Then proteins synthesized inside the cell. Under proteins, enzymes and antibodies, both are proteins. Then lipids synthesized in the plasma membrane. Then another important nanostructure which is constructed is a DNA molecule. During DNA replication, DNA molecule is being constructed inside the cell. So that is also a self-assembly process. Synthesis of nanostructure, DNA molecule. So biological compounds, they are synthesized at nanoscale level, and I see that these are very important in nanoscience. So what are the biological compounds used in nanoscience? So proposed biological compounds produced using the nanoscience concept are proteins, lipids, nucleic acids. Proteins, proteins are very important biological compounds. So they have a complex structure that lets them have specific characteristics and shape. So they are all produced using nanoscience. Lipids, hydrophilic lipids and hydrophobic lipids are there. So hydrophilic and hydrophobic interactions takes place in lipids, in lipid bilayer also sometimes, that permit them to assume specific shapes and to interact with the bodies of cells, that is the other components of the cell. The nucleic acids, their specific bonding permits them for the creation of specific shape and the ability to change that shape under different biological conditions. And we can see one by one, that is these biological compounds used in nanoscience. Protein structures. First one, protein structures. We know that protein is a very important biomolecule of the cell. So these proteins are made up of amino acids because they are created from amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of the proteins. So we know that there are 20 different amino acids found in nature, and they have all these 20 amino acids, they have their own unique properties, that is properties of the amino acids, that is already studied. So out of all these 20 amino acids, some of the amino acids are acidic in nature, some of the amino acids are basic in nature, and some other amino acids are neutral in nature. That is, all the amino acids, they have their own properties. Some of the amino acids are long strings of amino acids. They form the basic structure of a protein. The basic structure of a protein, any basic structure of any protein is a peptide sequence, the amino acid sequence. That is called the primary structure of a protein. So when you want to construct a protein structure, first you have to construct a primary structure of a protein. Once the primary structure is constructed, from that you can able to develop secondary structure of a protein, tertiary structure of a protein, quaternary structure of a protein. So we can see them. So here I can see that the primary structure of the protein is constructed from the basic molecule, that is called an amino acid. So this is the general structure of an amino acid. The general structure of an amino acid, which is having a carbon here. This carbon is connected with NH2, an amine group, one side, and the carboxylic group, COOH group, the acidic group is the other side, and one more electron is shared with hydrogen, and the last one is connected with an R chain, side chain of an amino acid. That R is varying from amino acid to amino acid. So that R is, it is a variation in the R group that leads to different types of amino acids like acidic amino acid, basic amino acid, or neutral amino acids. So this is the generalized structure of an amino acid. That R alone varies from amino acid to amino acid. And when two amino acids comes close to each other, they forms a bond. So the bonds formed between the amino acids, it forms a amino acid chain, that is a peptide sequence or amino acid sequence. So these bonds, they are going to form chains of amino acids. So here you can say two amino acids join together and it forms a peptide bond or an amide bond. Here you see that this is amino acid 1 and this is amino acid 2. The carboxylic end of one amino acid interacts with the amino end of another amino acid, and you see that one water molecule will be removed and CONH bond will be formed. That is an amide bond or a peptide bond. So when two amino acids interact with each other, a peptide bond or amide bond will be formed, and you will get a dipeptide. A dipeptide will have 2 amino acid residues. If one more amino acid comes here, it will form another peptide bond with this dipeptide, and a tripeptide will be formed. Then a tetrapeptide, hexapeptide, oligopeptide, polypeptide will be formed. So once a primary protein structure, that is peptide structure, is formed, that protein peptide sequence has to be further folded. That's called protein folding process. So once a further folding happens in the protein peptide, that is amino acid sequence, then you will get the 3-dimensional structure, that 3D structure of a protein. How to develop a 3D structure of a protein? The hydrogen bonds between the amino acids or between the amino group and the carboxylic groups of the amino acids, they are going to create 2 main forms of secondary protein structure. So from the primary structure, you are going to get a secondary structure of a protein. 2 types of secondary protein structures are formed in nature. One is called alpha helix structure. The other one is called beta pleated sheet. Alpha helix, that helix structure, and beta pleated sheet structure. Here you can see that 2 main secondary structures of proteins. So from the primary structure of a polypeptide chain, you are going to develop 2 main secondary structure of protein. So this is here you can see that this is the secondary structure of a protein, alpha helix structure, where you see that you are getting coiling like this. This is called alpha helix. If the amino acid sequences are arranged like this way, it is called another secondary structure called beta pleated sheet. Beta pleated sheet. So both this beta pleated sheet and alpha helix are formed from a primary structure of a protein. That is an amino acid sequence, a polypeptide chain. So from the secondary structure, if you want to develop any unique protein structures, that is a specific protein structure, then you have to go for tertiary structure or quaternary structure. So what are all the unique protein structures available in the living cells? Enzymes, for example, they have got unique protein structure. Antibodies, they have got unique protein structure. So these enzymes and antibodies are having unique protein structures that have this unique structure because of their specific structure, the 3D structural arrangement that can only attach to other unique structures. So this ability makes them important to nanotechnology because they can be used to bind and they can cause self-assembly. That is, they can construct their own 3D structure. That is called self-assembly, self-developing. By joining together 2 or more substances, joining together 2 or more side chains of the amino acids. So it is called self-assembly of the unique protein structures. So we are going to see some of the examples of unique protein structures constructed or self-assembled in the living cells, and we are going to see some examples on that. One example here, the self-assembled protein unique structure which is developed in living cells is molecular motors. Molecular motors. What are these molecular motors? These molecular motors are protein molecules. They are made up of proteins. They are protein molecules that they have been investigated as molecular motors because they are doing a function, that motor function. They are molecules, molecular compounds present in the living cells, especially made up of protein structure, and they are acting as motors. That is their functions, motor functions. So they are called as molecular motors. 3 of the proteins present in the living cells, they are having this function of molecular motors. And what are these 3 proteins available in the cells? F1, F0, ATPase particle. It is an enzyme functioning particle. It is having enzyme function. F1 F0 ATPase particle. Then another one is kinesin and dynein, another motor particle, molecular motor. The third one is myosin protein, that is present in the muscles. It is also having motor function. So these are all the three types of motor molecular motors available in the living cells. So we can see the molecular structure of this F1 F0 particle, F1 F0 ATPase. So what is this F1 F0 ATPase? It is a molecular motor present in the living cells. Where is this F1 F0 ATPase is located? It is found in inner membrane of mitochondria. You know what is mitochondria? It is a subcellular organelle, one of the important subcellular organelle of the living cell. It is the powerhouse of the cell. Mitochondria is covered by double membranes, two membranes, outer membrane and inner membrane. And this F1 F0 ATPase is found in inner membrane of mitochondria and chloroplast in all living organisms. This F1 F0 ATPase is a molecular motor, but it is having enzyme function also. The enzyme consists of three major units. The F0 particle, F0 unit, the central stalk that connects this F0 motor unit to the F1 motor unit, and F1 motor is a very important part of the F1 F0 ATPase particle. So this motor rotates, it is having rotation movement. It rotates one way during the synthesis of ATP. That is ATP synthesis or ATP production process in mitochondria. It rotates one way during ATP production and the opposite way during ATP hydrolysis or ATP breakdown. So during the synthesis of ATP, it will rotate in one direction. During the destruction or breakdown of ATP, it rotates in the opposite direction. That is the molecular rotation function of this F1 F0 ATPase. Apart from that, it is having enzyme activities also. So the structure and functions of this F1 F0 ATPase is a highly significant one, and you see that this is a biological molecular motor. It is a biological nanomachine. It's a nanoparticle machine which is available in the living cell. It's a biological nanomachine present in the living cells. So this is that F1 F0 ATPase molecular motor. This is the structure, the enlarged structure of this F1 F0 ATPase motor. It's a very minute nanoparticle, but here it is magnified several times using electron microscope. Here you see that this ATPase motor is having a rod on the top, and with that rod, nickel rod, another unit is attached, and this is called F1 unit, F1 motor unit, F1 ATPase unit. And this F1 ATPase is attached with the second unit through a hinge, small hinge, all the three sides. That is called a histidine tag. Histidine tag. With this histidine tag, it is attached with the second unit. With this stalk, it is attached with the rod. This is F1 unit. Then you have a nickel cap here. This is the violet color. And this is silicon dioxide post. So this is the entire ATPase motor. So this is a nanoparticle. It is a very important nanoparticle. Which is located in the inner membrane of mitochondria. The same F1 F0 ATPase, it is a nanomotor. See that it is there. It attached. So they added a metal rotor So they could observe the rotation. It is added with a rod, and you see that this portion will rotate, and removing the zinc from the system. So when you add the zinc binding site, you can turn off. It is having relatively short lifespan. The lifespan is very short period, and this could be used to generate electrical current. So this molecular nanomotor, which is a constructed nanomotor by nanotechnologists, and it is similar to the that is molecular motor which is available in the living cell, that is in the mitochondria, F1 F0 particle of the mitochondria. That is a natural biological machine. So similar to that concept, they have developed it steps in the right direction, but not the motor of the.
Friends, in this session we have seen about nanobiometrics, the structure of nanoparticles, that is nanostructure of lipids, some nanoproteins available in the cell, and we have seen the nanomotors and other kind of nanostructures available in the cell. Hope you have understood this well. With this, I am going to end this session. I will be coming back to you the other session. Until then, it is bye from KNS Biochemistry. Be safe in your home. If you go outside, wear the mask compulsorily. Thank you very much. Namaskar.